So I was browsing GOG when I came across this game right here, and it immediately reminded me of those playlists of Russian music on YouTube. You know, the ones with the anime girls in like 3D environments. That's all it took to catch my interest. Sometimes it really is that simple. Silly Polly is a game about a girl named Polly. She's mute, so she wrote STFU on her skateboard. That's the sort of subtle characterization I like in a game personally. It's suitable for my level of media literacy. Anyway, Polly is waiting for her orphan sister Alice to show up, but she doesn't, so Polly falls down a hole and goes to hell for being like a lesbian or something. That was a joke. She actually went to the abyss for something a little less hot and a lot less sinful. These guys are in hell because they're black, though. The premise is that you're hunting down some demons for this guy right here in exchange for a way out of the abyss. He looks like a trustworthy fella. Nothing to worry about there. The game's a top-down shooter, but it occasionally switches to 2D. There's one dedicated survival horror portion to the game, but it's mostly action, and there is literally one real puzzle that I brute forced anyway. I'm gonna start by making something clear. I like this game. I actually like it a lot. I like the gameplay, the aesthetic, the art, some of the music, and definitely the attention to detail. I just needed to say that because I want to tell you about how I almost bounced off the game for reasons that are mostly not the game's fault. I started out not too enthused about the story because I thought it was going to be another straightforward indie, edgy, lesbian thing because my reading comprehension wasn't at its best at the time. And the first game mechanic you're actually introduced to is the underbake stealth mechanic. Not ideal, but whatever. And then it came time to break down a barrier, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't working. I still don't know why. So I had to switch to controller. I was doing keyboard and mouse, so I switched to controller. And the issue is that the controller was actually connected by wire and Bluetooth, so every input was double. I spent the first couple hours of the game just assuming that moving both sticks at once, causing this weird jittery stutter step, was just standard indie game jank. I thought Polly firing several shots every time I pulled the trigger was deliberate as well, because early on the game makes it clear that she has no idea how to shoot a gun. I thought this was just the game's way of demonstrating that she's an amateur, and she doesn't really know what she's doing. It was only halfway through the first boss that I bothered to unplug the controller, and it was immediately apparent that the game played much, much better than expected. I suppose this is what happens when you assume a game is janky just because it's an indie game. My bad. My bad. After that was sorted out, I really started to enjoy the gameplay instead of just tolerating it. Anyway, as I said earlier, it's a top-down shooter that occasionally goes 2D. The game does have a melee, but enough enemies have a snap jab attack that it really should just be reserved as your last resort or for breaking down an enemy's guard. I initially assumed this would just be a pistol, melee, and grenade type of game, just very straightforward, but Silly Polly actually handles progression pretty well. You get 3 more guns throughout the game, and a few contextual rituals to keep combat fresh as you progress. As for movement, you've only got one move really, a dodge roll, but it's one of the good ones. You can slightly course correct mid-dodge, which should be the standard if you want your game to feel good, but somehow, this just isn't. So many games are just averse to letting you course correct mid-air or mid-dodge. Couldn't tell you why. Some of the game's supplementary systems are underbaked. There's money in the game, but you can only spend it on expendable items in a single cosmetic option, which seems like a wasted opportunity to me. I feel like it's pretty typical that you can spend money on permanent upgrades, but none here, nope. The stealth system shouldn't even be in the game, frankly. It feels bad, and you're incentivized to kill every enemy you come across at least once for their money and their mask, so you can buy items and unlock things in the gallery. Enemy variety is a mixed bag. There are 2 types of enemies in Silly Polly, 2 factions, I guess you could say. There are mask-wearing guys who fight like people. They wield weapons like guns and clubs, they use shields, and they throw rocks and grenades at you. These guys are always fun to fight. There's plenty you can do here with them. You can kite them into groups to throw a grenade, you can bat their projectiles right back at them, or you can wait for them to aim their guns at you so they lower their shields and give you a shot. Now on the other hand, there are these feral guys who don't wear masks and they generally just beeline straight for you in melee. As far as I can remember, none of these guys have any projectile attacks. The two real standouts for what I'm calling this group is just the fact that the skinny guys and the fat guys can transform into a more powerful variant. That just melts your health. They start growing spider legs out of their back, and if they touch you, they just sort of blend you until you're dead. You need to take them out while they're transforming, or they effectively insta-kill you once they reach you. Then there are these big fellas who can tether poly to them, which isn't an issue in a one-on-one, but it's brutal when there's a ton of enemies swarming around. In terms of visual design, I like the masks. They're simple, but they look good. They pop. My only criticism of their design is that the colors themselves should be more distinct. The frogs are the lowest level units, and their bright green stands out from the rest. Unfortunately, the other mask colors just sort of blend into each other and make identifying which enemy you're fighting take more than just a glance out of the corner of your eye. Red, light brown, and pale pink are all pretty close together on the color spectrum. I don't understand why the dev didn't just spread out the mask color range a bit more. Kinda seems like a no-brainer. You don't really need the color of the mask to be 100% accurate to the animal type. The maskless fellas are not that interesting in terms of design. You got a skinny guy, a fat guy, a big guy, a dog. And skinny guy and fat guy can sometimes have spider legs, oh boy. Even the bosses are sort of a missed opportunity here. The first two, at least. There are 4 bosses in the game. I'm not going to spoil the last 2, so you'll just have to take my word for it that their designs are pretty good. I like them. The game is backloaded in that regard. But the first 2, the first boss is just a giant centipede. It's not even like a crazy centipede demon or some sort of centipede-inspired monster. It's just a centipede. Want to guess the second boss? Go on. Seriously, give it a shot. Guess. That's right. It's a giant mosquito. Phenomenal. So yeah, just take my word for it. The next 2 bosses are more interesting. They really are. It's just a shame that the game starts with these relatively uninspired designs. It's not all bad though. The style. You know, style gets a bad rap in the gaming industry. People regurgitate that same phrase over and over again. Style over substance. This has led to some people considering style and substance to be opposing values, which is just moronic. Silly Poly has plenty of substance. It just so happens that it has proportionally a lot more style. It's what initially attracted me to the game, right? After all, it's a beautiful game with a nice color palette and that dreamlike, familiar place twisted by the supernatural thing that I enjoy. Occasionally that layer of normality is stripped away entirely for some trippier stuff. I like that too. All the character portraits are well done too. Poly's is clearly the best, but none of them are bad. Oddly enough, some of the characters that you would expect to have portraits just don't. It's probably a time constraint. It's an indie game, it happens. The music in Silly Poly is competently made, but most of it is just not to my taste. There are several instrumental metal tracks with these heavy guitar riffs that I would describe as Diet Mick Gordon. Sometimes it seems like it's just about to add another layer and explode into a climax, as Mick Gordon tracks do, but instead it just loops back into what it's already shown you. The other tracks are some dark electronic stuff, which I generally like, but not enough to add it to a playlist. It's usually the opposite. I usually like heavy guitars, and I usually dislike electronic, but in this game, I guess one's just better than the other, in my opinion. My favorite tracks in the game are actually the ambient guitar tracks. I particularly like the Gloomy Credits track. That's more up my alley, and it actually will be on one of my playlists. The game actually has skating levels that are basically an excuse to zone out and enjoy the music. I like these. It's it's pretty funny that they were clearly too hard for some of the playtesters because you can just skip them entirely if you fail once. It's very easy mode is now selectable energy. Yeah, you will need a tolerance for a sudden stop when you screw up. Hopefully you like the start of the song more than the ending. My only real criticism of the game is the survival horror section, which is the Orphanage. I think this is chapter 4 out of 5. The game takes a break from being an action shooter to try something more traditionally survival horror. I was glad to see the switch up in the pacing as soon as I saw that they were giving me a map, but this whole section just kinda sucks. You need to go back and forth to get item A to unlock door A to discover several more block passages that you'll need to backtrack to get items B, C, and D to open. And on top of that, an enemy starts placing bear traps everywhere that insta-kill Polly. Good news, you can shoot him. Bad news, this alerts the monster which insta-kills Polly. Great. Sometimes it doesn't insta-kill Polly though. You can just shoot him and nothing happens. But then the monster places a cheeky new trap somewhere else. Oh look, a trap right next to the first one. And if you shoot that one, guess where the next trap is? That's right. It's the other side of the first trap that you shot. Funny. I don't want to be too mean about this because, as I've said, I like the rest of the game a lot, but this section is either a failed attempt at traditional survival horror or it's just padding. It should have taken maybe half an hour, but it ends up taking closer to 90 minutes. I just grit my teeth for the whole thing and put on a podcast once I realized how it was going to be. I recommend you do the same because there is more game after this, and I do think it's worth enduring Chapter 4 to play it. The story and writing here are competent but unexceptional. It's a Silent Hill style scenario where Polly needs to confront her past. She was an orphan, so just go ahead and imagine all the sort of bad things you would expect to happen to an orphan. Yeah, it's stuff like that. The game doesn't go into gruesome detail here, but some stuff is explicitly stated but not described in detail, or it's implied but not described at all. I would describe the writing in the game as functional. The game never made me laugh or cry, but every plot point that needed to be communicated was. The only standout here was an out-of-place GTA San Andreas reference right before you're entering the orphanage. Oh, that sucked. What a way to take the wind out of a good scene. Beyond that, it's fine. The characters don't get enough screen time or dialogue for me to love or hate any of them. Oh well. It sort of coasts on the vibes rather than the depth of the writing or any extended character work. Silly Polly has a ton of little details that I like, and you'll notice one of my favorites immediately upon booting the game. The main menu and the in-game menu are Polly's phone, and you can see her glaring at you in the reflection, occasionally blinking. There's a part of the game where a change in her appearance is reflected here, and it's Kino. If you fire a gun in the shop, you get kicked out for 1 minute. You just gotta sit outside and twiddle your thumbs, think about what you've done. Kino. First time you pull up your hood after growing horns, ooh, spoilers, you grow horns, there's a tearing sound as the horns make room for themselves. Kino. Kino, actually. I love it when devs put little details in their games like this. This is the real reason Metal Gear Solid is good, by the way. It's not the gameplay or the story or the stealth espionage action or whatever. It's being able to do pull-ups to make Snake stronger, or the melting ice cubes in the bar. It's a clear distinction that tells me what you're making is art. It's not just some cynical product. Hey, developer Andre, or whatever your name is. Your efforts here are appreciated. The game has a little bit of cosmetic customization in there. Not enough for you to make a mess on your programming socks, but just a little customization. You can change the length of Polly's jacket. That's the one cosmetic purchase you can make with money. And then by collecting masks, you can unlock some decals for the skateboard in the gallery, as well as toggling your tail on or off. I don't know why you would do that though. I suppose some people really have no taste. I appreciate that the game has such a tiny HUD. Most games trend towards bloated and comically oversized HUD elements, but Silly Polly keeps the info bare bones and tiny in a corner of the screen. When I first started the game, I actually checked the settings menu trying to figure out how to switch weapons, because that little triangle is just so small and subtle that I couldn't see it. I think the best HUD elements are no HUD elements at all, so I like that the enemy health is reflected in red cracks appearing on their models and the appearance of limping and fleeing behavior once they're near death. I understand many people would be frustrated if a boss's health wasn't immediately clear, so I guess I'll forgive the boss health bars. It's just one of those necessary evils everyone has in their games. Silly Polly is about 6 to 9 hours, depending on what difficulty you're playing on and how fast you're going. I played the game on hard, but I also played pretty quick, so my final playtime was about 7 hours. 6 to 9 hours is a good length for this sort of game. So many games insist on overstaying their welcome by padding out the playtime with more encounters until you just start getting sick of the game. New Game Plus apparently has a third-person mode, which is pretty cool. Seems like a pretty crazy thing for a game to have. I'm assuming that the dev was just flip-flopping on which perspective would be best, so they made both. Looks good. I'll probably give it a shot at some point when I do a second playthrough. Anyway, congrats to the dev. Congrats to Andre blah blah blah. You made a good game. You did it. Well done. I'll probably try the next game you make too if it's up my alley. The game's on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox for $20. Give it a shot.